Okay, let's unpack this then. Picture tiny squash seeds, yeah. Just holding all that promise of summer harvest.
Mm, that potential.
And that's exactly what Kesser and Steen are up to. They're getting ready, maybe a bit ahead of the usual time.
Right, they're not quite out in the garden yet for this specific task.
No, but they're definitely getting their hands dirty inside, in Oma's kitchen, giving the squash a head start right there on the windowsill.
And what's really interesting here is the foresight. Starting the sowing inside like this, they're basically, stretching out their growing season.
Yeah,
This early start, while it's still maybe a bit iffy outside, lets the seedlings build up some strength before they face the real world.
totally. So if you've ever been curious about, how to get those little seeds going, or maybe you're already gardening but want some fresh ideas,
Uh,
then this deep dive should be right up your alley. We're going to dig into why Kesser and Steen are starting their squash indoors right now and look at their first steps.
and it fits, doesn't it? If you think about their background, the Nitarag innovation class helping Tante Grun,
Oh, yeah.
all that hands-on experience, it's clearly building a real practical understanding of how plants work.
Absolutely. And it's kind of infectious, isn't it? Steen got inspired by Kesser and Oma, built that raised bed for strawberries.
I remember hearing about that.
And now his dad is asking about growing more vegetables, too. It's like one project just sparks another.
That's often how it happens with gardening. It draws people in.
So back to these squash seeds. Oma's already done something quite smart, hasn't she? With testing old seeds.
Oh, definitely. Starting a few seeds early, indoors on the windowsill, that's just, smart gardening. It lets her check if last year's seeds are still viable.
Right, before you plant loads and find out they're duds.
Exactly. Saves time, saves effort, saves disappointment later. It's about testing your resources.
Makes total sense. Now, squash itself, we know it's pretty quick, right? Like 50 to 100 days, maybe, seed to harvest.
Yeah, roughly. That's the typical window.
And normally you just pop the seeds straight in the ground, maybe mid-May, once you're pretty sure the frost is done messing things up.
There's the standard way, direct sowing. And it works fine if the weather plays ball.
But starting indoors, like Kesser and Steen are doing, there are advantages.
Oh, absolutely. Those seedlings get, a few weeks of cozy, protected growth. They'll be much stronger, have a better root system than seeds just thrown into potentially cold, damp soil outside.
Right. Which brings us to Kesser calling squash a hungry plant. He knows they need a lot of food.
Yeah.
And apparently he's got some special idea for Steen related to that, but he's keeping it under wraps for now. Bit of mystery.
It does make you curious. It suggests he's thinking about, how to really feed these plants right from the get-go. But for now, they're focusing on the basics, gathering supplies.
Exactly. Very practical. They're getting Oma's homemade compost, the one they tested with cress, remember?
Right, so they know it's good stuff.
Plus small pots, cleaned out milk cartons for later.
For potting on, probably. Good recycling.
And even eggshells, just using what's around.
That kind of resourcefulness is, it's key for home gardening, isn't it? Using
Yeah.
milk cartons, eggshells, it saves money, it's sustainable. And testing the compost first. That's just good planning.
Yeah, proper methodical. Now, okay, some gardeners might start seeds way earlier.
It's true. Some start in February or March.
But Kesser and Steen, they've got school, homework, life.
Yeah, balancing act.
So they're fitting it in. And like they said, direct sowing outdoors isn't actually that far off in their part of the world anyway.
And that highlights something important. You got to tailor gardening to your own situation, your own climate. There's no single right way. They're being practical.
And speaking of squash, here's a fun fact for you. Botanically, zucchini, all types of squash, courgettes, they're fruits.
Ah, yes. The old fruit versus vegetable debate.
Technically, they're berries. And the plant itself is an herb, just means it's not woody. Weird, right?
It is. It shows how our kitchen language is different from the scientific stuff. Botanists look at the plant structure, where the seeds are.
Totally different perspective. But what's amazing about squash is how adaptable it is. You can grow it in like a 10-liter bucket on a balcony.
Totally doable.
Or a raised bed straight in the ground, a greenhouse, heck, even smack in the middle of a compost heap.
It really is versatile, which makes it great for beginners or people with limited space. You don't need acres.
So these seedlings they're starting now, they'll be indoors for maybe 2 to 4 weeks.
Something like that, yeah.
Which times it perfectly for planting them out in June when, you can be pretty darn sure the frost is definitely over.
That indoor period is key. They develop strong roots in a safe spot, so they're tougher when they go outside. Less transplant shock, hopefully.
Now, they mentioned something else really fascinating. The Three Sisters.
Ah, yes, that's a really powerful concept.
An ancient indigenous way of planting, right?
Yeah.
Squash, beans, and corn all growing together.
Exactly. It's this beautiful mini ecosystem. The corn provides a stalk for the beans to climb.
Like a natural trellis.
Right. The beans, being legumes, fix nitrogen in the soil, which helps feed the corn and squash.
Because squash are hungry plants.
Precisely.
Right.
And the squash leaves spread out low to the ground, shading out weeds and keeping the soil moist. It's genius ecological design.
Wow. And it's not just one fixed method, is it? They mention variations even down south.
No, it's been adapted all over depending on the local climate, the specific varieties of corn, beans, squash. It shows real deep knowledge passed down through generations.
But Kesser and Steen said this whole trisestry thing, the Three Sisters, that's a big topic, maybe for another day.
Oh, it absolutely is. You could do a whole deep dive just on that. The history, the science, the different ways people practice it. It's incredibly rich.
Definitely sounds like it. And you know, another nice little detail, Steen's mom is apparently starting to see the value in growing their own food.
That's wonderful, getting the family involved.
Yeah, and how they paid for the seeds, collecting cans and bottles for the deposit money.
Now that's initiative. Resourceful kids. Connecting those small actions like recycling to a bigger goal like buying seeds. That's fantastic.
Totally. And get this, the packet of squash seeds cost half the price of one squash from the supermarket.
See, that really drives home the value, doesn't it? Even on a small scale.
And they had enough money left over to also buy Hokkaido pumpkin seeds, which are related, right? Like cousins.
Very closely related, yeah. Both in the cucurbita family. Same basic needs.
So they're sowing both types indoors now. Super efficient.
Makes perfect sense. Since they grow similarly, might as well start them together.
Now, if you were planting directly outside, say in South Scandinavia where they are, what are the rules? Soil temperature needs to be up.
Absolutely critical. At least 15 degrees Celsius. And using a soil thermometer is the best way to know for sure. Don't just guess.
Good tip. And maybe use a fleece cover.
Yeah, a bit of fleece, like a row cover, can really help warm the soil and protect those first tender shoots, especially if you get a sudden cool snap. Squash really dislikes cold feet.
Which is exactly why Kesser's starting them inside. Gets ahead of the game.
It's a safer bet, especially early on. Plus, he mentioned having extra seeds.
Yeah, so if some don't make it, no big deal. And he's thinking about staggering the sowing times, too.
Smart. So some now, maybe some more in a week or two. That can help spread out the harvest later on so you're not swamped with squash all at once.
Clever. And he's got other plans, too. Some little experiments, like planting one squash directly in the ground to kind of prepare the soil for a blueberry patch later.
Interesting idea. Using the squash's growth habit to maybe improve the soil structure or something before the blueberries go in. Shows he's thinking ahead.
And they might try growing one in a bucket at Steen's place, just to show it can be done, even for beginners.
Great demonstration of container gardening. Very encouraging for people who think they don't have space.
But wait, there's more. Kesser, right, he's already propagated tomatoes and potatoes.
Yeah, he's got a knack for it.
Now he's going to try and clone squash plants.
Wow, okay. That's definitely stepping it up. Cloning vegetables like squash isn't always easy, but it shows he's really curious about plant science, about different propagation techniques.
Totally. And one last practical tip they got from Glitterfang at the nursery about watering. If you plant seedlings on a little mound, water around the base of the mound, not right on the stem.
That's excellent advice. Keeps the stem itself from staying too wet, which can lead to damping off or stem rot, especially in young plants. Very important detail.
So summing up then, Kesser and Steen are jumping into squash season, starting seeds indoors, thinking carefully about timing, using homemade compost.
Gathering materials, yeah.
And even planning some pretty cool experiments along the way. It's all about giving those seeds the best possible shot.
Exactly. It's a really thoughtful approach, covering the basics, but also looking ahead, being curious. That's what leads to success, usually.
And remember that Three Sisters idea they brought up? That amazing system with squash, beans, and corn all helping each other out?
Such a fascinating example of, well, ecological partnership in the garden. Real symbiosis.
Well, they did hint they might talk more about that another time. So if you want to hear that story and keep following Kesser and Steen's gardening adventures...
You should definitely subscribe.
Yeah, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future deep dives.
And maybe it gets you thinking. What other hidden connections, what surprising partnerships might be going on in the natural world, right outside your own door? Perhaps in your garden, or even just in a local park. Something to ponder.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Picture tiny squash seeds, yeah,